Hello and welcome to the One Life Church devotional series where we cover the entire Bible in 20 months. Well, today's chapters are Judges 19 and 20. In my humble opinion, the most reprehensible, horrific chapters in the entire Bible. It starts like this. In those days, Israel had no king, which is a dire warning that there's going to be chaos. When there's no government, when there's no leadership, there's trouble. Now a Levite who lived in a remote area in the hill country of Ephraim took a concubine from Bethlehem in Judah. And so he's from the hill country. Behind me are the hills. But the reason I've sat here is this is probably the only lot of flowers that are flowering in our garden at the moment. And I ask myself when I read a chapter like this, where's the life? Where's the beauty? Where's the flower? Where's Jesus in such a mess? So I'm going to encourage you, look for the beauty in this story, because it's hard to find actually. You know, when you read scriptures like this, you understand that God doesn't want you to copy this. He doesn't endorse this, but he puts it in scripture. And the reason he does is to show us man's sinfulness, our need for Jesus, and to show us, you know, the depravity of man that's in need of rescue. And so this story starts with the concept of concubine. Let's deal with that right now, because the word concubine in the original Hebrew is not even a Hebrew word. It's borrowed from another language, because this concept is not God's concept. It's not his idea. We know God's idea for marriage. One man, one woman, covenanted for life, husbands laying down their lives for their wives, wives honoring their husbands. That's God's plan. So what with the concubine? Well, in these days, women were abused and women were vulnerable. And, you know, concubines were part of polygamy. But what scripture does do is that it begins to regulate the way men deal with the second, third, fourth, and fifth wife. In fact, there are 4 categories of concubine that you'll find in the Bible. The first one is a Hebrew man selling his daughter. I mean, that is like horrific. But when he's in absolute poverty and can't look after her, that was one of the things they did. So God steps in there in Exodus 21 and he says, listen, she's got to be treated like a wife. She's got to be fed. She's got to be clothed. And, you know, if the husband no longer wants her, she's got to be sold to a man who's going to treat her with dignity or go back to her dad. The second is when a Gentile captive was taken in war. Rape is a big problem in war all over the world. You just got to look at the news today. And the Bible strictly prohibits that. And so basically scripture is saying, if you are going to invade another land and you're going to take a woman from that land to be your wife, you've got to treat her as a wife. You don't rape her. And so what's God doing? You're saying, well, is God endorsing this? No, he's not endorsing it. He's regulating it to protect the women's rights, and in a fallen world, in a fallen society. The other two are purchasing a foreign slave. Well, that wasn't recognized because, you know, God wanted women to be treated as wives, not as slaves. And then taking a Canaanite woman, whether she's bonded or free, was also that was actually forbidden in Scripture. So here you've got this Levite from this remote area in Ephraim, and he takes a concubine. She's not happy, goes back to dad. When she goes back to dad, he follows, sits down and deals with the father, and, you know, after a long time, they leave. I'm assuming she's leaving with a blessing of dad, and then she's changed her mind, and she goes. But they come to a place called Gibeah in the tribe of Benjamin, and some horrific men come to the door. They were lodging at a particular place. And this man sends out his concubine. Instead of going out there and manning up himself, they rape her all night. She dies on the step. When he wakes up in the morning, he lets this happen all night. I mean, just stop there for a moment. What husband would do that to his wife, his concubine, or any woman, actually? God's not endorsing this. This is absolutely horrific. Husbands, Ephesians chapter 5 says, love your wives as Christ did the church. What is that? Lay your life down for her. Anyway, the story doesn't end there. He goes back. He's really bleak now because he's lost a concubine. He chops her up limb by limb and sends it across the whole of Israel. Israel's horrified. You can imagine. And they declare war on the Benjamites. They kill 25,000. There's civil war breaks out after this. You see, God's not endorsing this. In fact, the Israelites aren't even endorsing this. This is a horrific story. 600 escape, and we'll pick up that story next time we look at this chapter. Now, you're saying, Grant, where is the beauty in this? It's very, very difficult to find. There's a glimmer of hope that God is saying to these women in a very hostile and fallen world. Like, I'm going to create an environment where you are wives. But the overriding story, the overriding beauty in the story is Jesus was promising, you don't going to have to live at this address for the rest of your lives. I'm going to come and stop this. I'm going to send my son. He's going to deal with the sin that causes concubines, that causes rape, that causes abuse of women. And I'm going to restore them. And what God does through Jesus is he makes women whole, he makes men whole, and he makes marriage possible. Well, I trust that as you read this story, you see it in the context of God's revulsion of sin and his plan for marriage. God bless you.